My deal is that I was a lousy student all through school. I didn't have the patience for it. By the time I got to high school, all I wanted to do was work. I wanted to make money. I wanted to find some kind of way to be successful without having to wade through the whole school thing. I drove across country in a 1968 Dodge van with my father and a big brown faux leather recliner in the back. And I got an apartment in the valley, in the San Fernando Valley, and started working at this publishing company. But I worked for this magazine for exactly 1 month, and then the publisher killed the title. And then at that point, I was a new resident of Southern California without a job. But I had made one contact at the publishing company before I lost my job there. And this guy was an editor of another publication, and he called me up and said, look, I got to do these car magazines. Did you want to do them with me? I said, I don't know anything about cars. He says, you don't have to know anything about cars. I'll show you how to do it. And he did. He showed me how to sit down cold at a typewriter and just write stream of consciousness. And that's what we did. And then when he got called to edit a major motorcycle magazine at the time, a magazine called Dirt Bike Magazine, which is still in existence. Through my association with Dirt Bike, I went on to know this guy and his family, and then moved from California to Ohio in 1985 and worked for the parent company of what was that motorcycle. I worked for KTM Motorcycles in northern Ohio for a couple of years. But that job wasn't really working out. It didn't turn out to be what it was supposed to be. But in the meantime, while I was there, I made one contact there. I came across the editor and publisher of a magazine called New England Trail Rider Magazine, which was based in Connecticut at the time. And I saw this magazine, kind of noticed it was a little rough. And I said to him one day on the phone, I said, you know, if you ever want to sell this thing, you know, you ought to let me know. And those were the magic words. And my attitude was, well, I'll do this until it gets old, until something better comes along, and then I'll do whatever else comes along. And as it turns out, I owned that for roughly 25 years. And then finally I sold it in about 2010, because basically I'd run out of things to say. In 2010 I sold the magazine, and at that point I had nothing to do. But I had a fine motorcycle at the time, and I decided, well, I haven't ridden across country in a motorcycle yet. And did 14,000 some odd miles on it, and went through 37 states, and did a great big loop all around the country. And while I did it, I kept a journal, and I took pictures along the way. And I wound up publishing a book on Kindle. I mean, the thing that long-distance motorcyclists don't routinely tell you is it really is exhausting. I mean, it's not like laying back in a Cadillac and watching the billboards go by. I didn't really have any ambition to live here, but what happened was, when I moved to Vermont, and Bellows Falls, Vermont, where I worked for WOOL radio in Bellows Falls. Yeah. And I was there for a while. I was there for a year, and then my mother her health started failing, and I was running back and forth from Cambridge to there, and then she passed away in 2013, and at that point I moved to Cambridge to take care of my father. And I gradually got to know the place. I was here for about a year and a half or something like that. And I met someone who worked for the Dorchester Banner newspaper. And I talked to her, and she said, is it okay if I go back to the office and tell them about you? And I got a call from the publisher of the paper that night saying, you need to work for me. Because apparently they were looking for an editor at the time. And I I knew how to work all the software they were using, let's put it that way. And I had a lifetime in publishing up to that point. So all of a sudden I became the editor of the local newspaper. I had to do everything that nobody else wanted to do. That's basically, I've done photography before. I've been a photographer all my life. I've been a writer all my life. And I've always dabbled with woodworking. And what happened is I stumbled across the sport of making cigar box guitars. This is the first mandolin I built. I built 3 of them in a row, and I was really thrilled with it. I built guitars and violins and a fretless bass, and I have 17 instruments to show in the upcoming show, and that's May and June of this year. Well, you get the cigar boxes at the cigar store in Easton, who sell their cigar boxes for $3 each once they're empty. You want a good cedar box. You want a good quality box. You can't make it out of a cardboard box. That is a built-in preamp and tuner. So to tune it, you turn it on and it tells you. Now you see, the thing is, I can't really play. I mean, I was a strummer when I was young, and I had a guitar and I played it and I sang, but I didn't know anything about music. You know, now I know a lot about music, but I can't play. What's my company called?
Yeah.
Oh, I called it Homegrown Chordophones, because a chordophone, C-H-O-R-D-O-P-H-O-N-E, is a stringed instrument. But I just try to keep myself amused. I do a blues show on WHCP because that's the music that resonates with me. I got into it so that I could play people like Mose Allison and Yusef Lateef, because I used to have a jazz show. A lot of people that nobody's ever heard of. Now I play blues music by a lot of people I've never heard of either, but there's a flood of them out there. When I came to Cambridge and started working on the newspaper, this is the first time that I've ever felt such a strong sense of community as we have here in Cambridge. There's a legendary division in this town between the from heres and the come heres. And as a come here, I don't want to change the place just for the sake of change. Cambridge is a funky little town, and it's very fun, and I'm very optimistic about its future.